Hi guys, it's Miss Ravel, and I'm going to be doing the intro lesson to absolute value for you guys. So let's get started. All right, absolute value. Absolute value is the distance a number is from zero on a number line. So it's how far you are away from zero. So let's just make zero Verdugo. And let's make this Anna's house, and we're gonna make this Silas's house. One of the things you need to know is that it takes them both 3 miles. They have to ride their bike or drive or walk or whatever. It's going to take them 3 miles no matter what. Okay. Anna's going 3 miles this way. Silas is going 3 miles this way. There is no such thing as a negative distance, okay? Which is why in absolute value, it's not negative because there's no such thing as a negative distance. So again, it doesn't matter if he's going to Verdugo this way and she's going to Verdugo this way. They both went 3 miles. One of them didn't go negative 3 miles. So something to keep in mind when we're getting into absolute value, again, it's the distance you are away from zero on a number line. And that distance is never negative. All right, so no such thing as negative distance. We represent absolute value with these two big vertical lines. In English, this says the absolute value of 3. That's what this says. Absolute value of 3. Okay. When you write absolute value, you need to make sure you're doing it neatly because sometimes you see this and that looks like 131. Okay. So make sure when you're writing this, you're actually getting in there and your absolute values are bigger than your numbers inside. Something to know about your absolute values. The absolute value of a positive number is positive. Okay, so we like to teach this as like these are your shower doors, right? And when you get in the shower and you're already clean, you're positive, you're still gonna come out clean. Okay, you came in clean, you come out clean. The absolute value of a negative is also positive. So again, you have your shower doors here. You go in dirty, you're negative, you come out clean. Okay, so either way, your answer is going to come out as a positive number. Now, that doesn't mean that what's inside the absolute value can't be negative, but it's going to come out clean. It's going to come out positive. All right, let's do a couple things here. When a variable is inside the absolute value, so you have x inside the absolute value, you will almost always get 2 answers. Now, I'm going to show you the 2 times you won't, but our goal is for you guys to split up these equations and get 2 answers. When you write your solutions, you're going to write them in braces. That's the fancy name for this in math. Those are braces. You don't want to use parentheses because then it looks like an ordered pair, which it's not. Okay, so let's do our first example. Our first example, we're going to use the absolute value of x equals 7. When you do this, when you get your 2 equations, you have a few things you need to do first. The first thing, make sure your absolute value is isolated. It's by itself on one side. Over here, there's nothing else over here. There's nothing out here. There's nothing on this side. It's just the absolute value by itself and whatever's inside. Once the absolute value is by itself, you split it into 2 equations. One that's positive, one that's negative. So when I drop this down here, I'm going to get rid of my absolute values, and I'm going to have my positive, x equals 7, and my negative, x equals -7. Now I've already solved this because I already know what values of x, and I'm going to write my answer like this. -7, 7 is a solution. Okay? And then when I plug it back in to check, if I plug in -7, the absolute value of -7 equals 7. The absolute value of +7 also equals 7. So I know that my 2 solutions are correct. Let's try some more. Okay. The absolute value of 30. The absolute value is the absolute value of x equals 30. The absolute value is by itself, so I can switch it to my 2 equations. My first equation is going to be x equals 30. My second equation, there's one. My second equation is x equals -30. Very basic. And I'm good to go. My solutions are -30 and 30. Let's try this one. This one's one of the tricky ones. I'll put a little green star next to that. Okay. This one's tricky because this one, there is no number that I can put in here to get me a -5. There's nothing that can come out of the absolute value symbol that's going to give me a -5. So careful with this, right? Because I know a lot of you guys are going to go x equals 5, x equals -5. Okay, that doesn't work. Cross those out. Because the absolute value of something can't be negative. If I plug that in there, I have the absolute value of 5 equals -5. 5 equals -5. No, it does not. That doesn't work. I plug -5 in there. The absolute value of -5 equals -5. Okay, well, the absolute value of -5 is still 5, and that does not equal -5 either. Okay? So this equation has no solution. Okay? So that's one of the two instances in which you won't get two solutions. You can get no solution. Right? Let's look at these three basic equations. I've made small little tweaks to each one. This one is the absolute value of 3x equals 9. This one is the absolute value of -3x equals 9. And this one is the absolute value of 3x equals -9. Okay? Two of these work, one of them do not. Right? So let's try it. In all three cases, the absolute value is already isolated. So I can choose my two, I can split it up into my two equations. So let's do that. I have 3x equals 9, 3x equals -9. And then you're just going to solve these like you would a regular equation. Divide both sides by 3. Mind your negatives. I get x equals 3, x equals -3. My solutions for this are -3 and 3. Here, your absolute value is already isolated. There's nothing on the inside of the there's nothing on the outside. There's stuff on the inside. Break it up into your two equations. -3x equals 9. -3x equals -9. And solve your equation. You guys all know how to do this. This is the easy part. Splitting it up is the hard part. Remembering to split it up is the hard part. I get x equals -3, x equals +3. Remember, you have two negatives here, so they cancel out. And again, my answers are -3 and 3. And then we're here again. I hope this looked like the one up there, which was the absolute value of x equals -5. There's nothing that I can put in here. I can't put in 3. I can't put in -3 that's going to give me a -9. So this one right here is no solution. Because when I take the absolute value of something, I cannot get a negative. Now look, you can put a negative inside here. Like if I were to, like when I'm, for this problem, when I plug in -3, that's fine because when it comes out, it equals a +9. But there is nothing that I can put in here that's going to give me a -9. So please be very, very careful with that. Try a couple problems here. Okay. Easy, one-step equations. The absolute value is isolated. Set up your two equations. -4 plus 5x equals 16. Second equation, -4 plus 5x equals -16. And then solve your equations. Add 4, 5x equals 20. Divide both sides by 5, x equals 4. Add 4 to both sides. 5x equals -12. Divide both sides by 5, x equals -12 over 5. It is absolutely okay to get a fraction. Okay? Because when I plug that back in for x, I'm going to get an appropriate answer when I solve this out. Okay, so fractions are okay. And again, you're going to write your answers in braces so that it's there for you. Okay, let's do this one right here. Division. You guys love this one so much. I know when we had to solve equations, it's fantastic. absolute values by itself. Two equations. X over 5 equals 1. X over 5 equals -1. How do I solve this for x? This is a division, so I need to multiply both sides by 5. I get x is equal to 5. Again, division, inverse operation is multiplication. Multiply both sides by 5, x gets me -5. So your answers, your solutions are -5 and 5. Okay, and let's try this one. Again, absolute value is already by itself. -2x minus 1 equals 11. -2x minus 1 equals -11. Add 1 to both sides. -2x equals 12. By both sides by -2. X equals -6. There's the first one. Second one, add 1 to both sides. -2x equals -10. Divide both sides by -2. X equals 5. Okay. My solutions are -6 and 5. I have two solutions. Now, again, you can always check your work. So let's do that real quick. Let me just take this problem. We want to check our work. I'm just going to plug in my answers for X and see if they make sense. So on the first one, I'm going to have the absolute value of -2 times -6 minus 1, absolute value, equals 11. I have -2 times -6, which is +12. So I have the absolute value of +12 minus 1 equals 11. And then I have the absolute value of 11 equals 11. Again, why it's important to make sure you can actually see which ones your absolute values are. And I get 11 equals 11. So 6 works. That guy's good. Let's try 5. I've got the absolute value of -2 times 5 minus 1 equals 11. I have -10 minus 1 equals 11. The absolute value of -11 equals 11. And remember, we're here. You come in dirty, or you go in dirty, you come out clean. 11 equals 11. So that guy works too. So again, you can check your work on your exams, on your quizzes. It's worth the time so you don't get the questions wrong. All right, and the last example I want to give you is the other exception to the rule where you're going to get one solution. And you're going to get one solution when something's equal to 0. And that is because there is no -0. We don't have positive and negative zeros. It's just 0. So there's only one number. There's only one number that will work, that will make this true. Okay? And I know you guys can see it right away. It's going to be 7 minus 7 equals 0. The absolute value of 0 equals 0. Okay? 0 equals 0. So my answer is going to be 7. That's my solution. But just something to look at, that this is one of the exceptions to having two solutions. Otherwise, please get into the habit of doing it this way, where you break up your two problem, or you break up your absolute value into two equations and solve. Like I said, this one and the no solution are just the exceptions. All right, so that is it for your intro. Your next video will be Mr. Chung on making them a little bit more difficult, having things on the outside of these. And I will see you guys next week.